What if the Empire retook Coruscant? Let's explore the depths of it in this video. The shield is down. They're landing. Leia hears those words, and her blood turns to ice. She stands at the viewport. Star destroyers blot out the sun. Dozens of them. More than she's ever seen in one place. The capital of the New Republic is under attack. Not a raid, not a probe, an invasion, and she has maybe 10 minutes to live. The comms are screaming, senators are panicking, stormtroopers are already hitting the streets below. This wasn't supposed to happen. They won. The Empire fell. Palpatine is dead. The war is over. Except it isn't. Because Grand Admiral Thrawn just proved that everything the New Republic believed was a lie. 5 years of peace. 5 years of rebuilding. 5 years of believing the nightmare was finally over. Gone in a single morning. The most protected world in the galaxy, the seat of galactic democracy, is falling. And no one saw it coming. How did this happen? How did the Empire return from the ashes? And more importantly, can anyone survive what comes next? It started with complacency. The New Republic grew comfortable on Coruscant, settling into the old Imperial Palace, transforming it into a beacon of democracy. Politicians debated trade regulations, while the remnants of the Empire gathered in the shadows. Scattered fleets coalesced under new leadership. Shattered armies reformed under new banners. And at the center of it all stood Thrawn. The brilliant Chiss tactician spent years studying the New Republic, its politics, its military, its leaders. He analyzed their art, their culture, their weaknesses. He understood them better than they understood themselves. And now he strikes. The assault comes from 3 directions simultaneously. From the galactic north, a fleet of star destroyers under Admiral Pellaeon engages the New Republic Defense Force. These are the hammer, obvious and overwhelming, drawing the defenders' attention and firepower. From the south, a second fleet drops out of hyperspace behind the orbital stations, catching the defensive platforms in a deadly crossfire. And from within the planet itself, sleeper agents activate. These are the men and women Thrawn planted years ago. Imperial loyalists who pretended to embrace the new order while waiting for this moment. They sabotage the planetary shields. They disable the communication arrays. They assassinate key officers at critical moments. It is a masterwork of coordination. It is vintage Thrawn. In orbit, Han Solo and Chewbacca are caught in the opening moments of the battle. The Millennium Falcon was docked at a repair station when the first Star Destroyers appeared, undergoing maintenance on its temperamental hyperdrive. Now they race through a maze of laser fire and exploding ships, desperately trying to reach the surface. Chewie roars as a TIE fighter clips their rear deflector, the ship shuddering from the impact. Han pulls the Falcon into a spinning dive, threading between 2 colliding cruisers, whose pilots were too focused on the enemy to watch each other. The space around Coruscant has become a graveyard in minutes. "We need to get to Leia," Han shouts over the chaos. Chewie growls a response, pointing at the sensor displays showing the devastation below. "Yeah, I know the shields are down. That's exactly why we need to get down there. She's in that mess somewhere, and I'm not leaving her." The Falcon weaves through the battle, its laser cannons blazing at targets of opportunity. But for every TIE fighter Han destroys, 3 more take its place. The Imperial fleet is overwhelming, precisely coordinated despite its size. The New Republic ships are being picked apart with surgical precision. Thrawn has anticipated every defensive maneuver, countered every tactic before it's even employed. On the surface, the first landing craft touched down in the Senate District. The transports are the new Sentinel class, designed for rapid deployment. their hulls still bearing the scars of previous battles. Stormtroopers pour out in disciplined formations, their white armor gleaming under Coruscant's artificial lights. They move with purpose, securing landing zones, establishing perimeters, advancing toward predetermined objectives. The local security forces are caught completely off guard. They expected protests, perhaps terrorism, not a full-scale military invasion. Blaster fire erupts in the streets as the outnumbered defenders try to hold back the tide. The Empire has returned. Leia watches the chaos unfold from the Senate chamber. Around her, the senators argue about what to do, their voices rising in panic and accusation. Some demand immediate surrender, citing the lives that could be saved by ending resistance now. Others call for a last stand, invoking the memory of Alderaan and every other world the Empire destroyed. A few simply weep, overwhelmed by the sudden collapse of everything they thought they'd built. Leia silences them all with a single raised hand. We evacuate, now. The government must survive, even if Coruscant falls. We are the new Republic, not this building, not this planet, us. The people who carry the dream of freedom. If we die here, the dream dies with us. If we survive, we can fight another day. Rebuild, return. This is not the end, unless we let it be. A senator from Chandrila, an older man who served in the Imperial Senate before defecting, protests. Princess Leia, we cannot abandon the capital. It would be a symbol of defeat. It would tell every system in the Republic that we cannot protect even ourselves. How can we ask others to stand with us if we run at the first sign of danger? Leia's eyes are hard as Durasteel when she meets his gaze. Symbols can be rebuilt, dead senators cannot. I've watched planets burn, Senator. I've seen what the Empire does to those who resist without hope of victory. Right now, we have no hope of holding this planet. Our fleet is shattered, our defenses are compromised. If we stay and fight, we die, and everything we've worked for dies with us. That's not courage. That's suicide dressed up in pretty words. Now move. She leads them through the corridors of the Senate building, her blaster drawn and ready. A squad of Senate guards flanks them, their blue armor catching the emergency lighting as they move through passages that were designed for ceremony, not combat. Leia knows the building's layout intimately, every hidden passage and emergency exit. She spent 5 years here, shaping a government, fighting political battles that sometimes felt as dangerous as military ones. Now that knowledge might save their lives. The Empire is landing troops faster than they can evacuate. Thrawn's coordination is flawless, his transports touching down at precisely calculated intervals, each wave securing an area before the next arrives. The Senate district is being surrounded. They need to reach the emergency hangar before it's too late. As they round a corner into a main junction, blaster fire erupts from ahead. Stormtroopers have already infiltrated the building, moving through maintenance tunnels and secondary entrances. Leia drops to one knee and returns fire. Her shots precise and deadly, despite the fear pounding in her chest. 2 troopers fall before the guards can even react, their white armor scorched by her bolts. Move, she orders the senators huddling behind her. Emergency Route 7. Go now. The senators flee past her as Leia holds the corridor. She thinks of her parents, of Alderaan hanging beautiful and blue in space before the Death Star's beam touched it. She thinks of everything the Empire took from her, her home, her family, her childhood, her peace. She will not let them take this too. Not without a fight. Not while she still has breath in her body and a blaster in her hand. But even as she fires, more troopers appear at the far end of the hall. They're being surrounded, caught in a classic pincer movement. Thrawn's troops are well trained, moving in coordinated fire teams, using cover effectively. This isn't the sloppy garrison work she saw on Imperial backwaters. This is professional military operation. Fall back, she commands. Emergency Route 7. Now. The guards obey, pulling the senators toward a side passage that leads to the building's infrastructure levels. Leia backs away, still firing, when a hand grabs her shoulder. She spins, blaster rising, and finds herself face to face with Han Solo. The smuggler's clothes are singed, his face is dirty, but that familiar smirk is still in place despite the chaos surrounding them. Need a lift, Your Highness? They run. Han leads the way, shooting down troopers with the casual efficiency of a man who's been in more firefights than he can count. His movements are fluid, instinctive, the product of a lifetime surviving in the galaxy's roughest corners. Chewie brings up the rear, his bowcaster sending soldiers flying with each shot. The weapon's quarrels hit with enough force to knock a man off his feet, even if they hit his armor. They burst through a service door and find themselves in a narrow maintenance corridor lined with pipes and cables. The sounds of battle echo from all directions. The whole building is being overrun. Stormtroopers are everywhere, methodically securing each level, cutting off escape routes. Han pulls out a comlink. Falcon's on the roof. Lando's holding it for us. We've got maybe 5 minutes before this whole place is swarming with bucketheads. I had to fly through hell to get here, so let's not waste the trip. Leia nods, her mind racing through options. She turns to the remaining senators, counting quickly. How many transports are in the emergency hangar? A Celestin senator checks his datapad with trembling hands, nearly dropping it twice before managing to pull up the information. 6. Enough for perhaps 200 people. There are over 1,000 beings in this building. Staff, guards, support personnel, visitors caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Leia makes a decision that will haunt her for years to come. All non-essential personnel are to surrender. Cabinet members, military commanders, and key senators will evacuate with us. Everyone else stays and complies with Imperial demands. They'll be treated as prisoners of war. The conventions of warfare still apply, even from the Empire. The Celestin's large eyes widen with horror. You're asking us to abandon our people, to leave them to the mercy of the Empire. I'm asking our people to survive. The Empire wants the leadership. That's what Thrawn is after. If we give them prisoners instead, those prisoners live. If we all die trying to escape, the new Republic dies with us. There won't be anyone left to negotiate their release, to continue the fight, to remember what we were trying to build. This is the choice we have. Not the one I want, the one that exists. It's brutal calculus. It's the kind of decision that separates leaders from followers, that ages a person in moments. Leia never wanted to make choices like this. She wanted a galaxy where such choices weren't necessary. But that galaxy doesn't exist yet. And until it does, someone has to make the hard calls. They split up. Han takes Leia and a handful of crucial leaders toward the roof, moving through back corridors and service passages. The Senate guards escort the others toward the emergency hangar on the building's lower levels. As they separate, Leia catches the eye of a young aide, barely 20, who's being left behind. She tries to convey everything in that look. I'm sorry. Be brave. Survive. We'll come back for you. The aide nods once, understanding, accepting. And then the groups move apart. The route to the roof is treacherous. Twice they encounter stormtrooper patrols and have to fight through. Han takes a graze to the shoulder that he shrugs off with characteristic nonchalance, though Leia can see the pain in his eyes. Chewie carries a wounded senator who caught a bolt to the leg. The group is bleeding, exhausted, terrified, but they keep moving. On the roof, the Millennium Falcon sits with its ramp down, engines humming with barely contained power. Lando Calrissian leans out of the cockpit, waving frantically, his usual smooth demeanor cracked by genuine fear. We need to go. Now. Right now. They have Star Destroyers moving into bombardment position. If they decide to level this building, we're all dead. Leia looks back at the city she fought so hard to claim. Smoke rises from a dozen districts where fighting continues. The distant thunder of explosions rolls across the skyline like approaching storms. TIE fighters scream overhead, strafing resistance positions, their distinctive shriek a sound from her nightmares. Coruscant, the gleaming capital of galactic civilization, is falling. They board the Falcon and lift off just as a squad of stormtroopers bursts onto the roof. Blaster bolts ping off the ship's hull as Han pushes the engines to full power, the old freighter groaning in protest, but responding like it always does. The Falcon shoots upward, joining a ragged convoy of escaping transports that manage to launch from other locations. But they're not out of danger yet. The Imperial fleet still controls the orbital space, forming a web of destruction that few ships can penetrate. Thrawn's forces form a blockade, methodically destroying any vessel that tries to flee. Escape pods are being captured by tractor beams. Transport ships are being disabled and boarded. The Empire isn't just winning, it's ensuring that everyone knows they've won. Han studies the tactical display, his experienced eyes picking through the chaos of data. There's a gap. Sector 7. 2 destroyers are engaged with a Mon Calamari cruiser. The fishheads are putting up one hell of a fight. If we punch through there while they're distracted, we might make it. Leia looks at the display and sees what Han sees. The gap is narrow, barely enough room for the Falcon to squeeze through. The timing has to be perfect, threading between overlapping fields of fire. And even if they make it through the initial blockade, they'll be flying straight into the guns of the Chimera, Thrawn's flagship, the nerve center of the entire invasion. It's suicide. Do it, she says. The Falcon accelerates toward the gap, Han's hands dancing across the controls with the precision of a concert pianist. Around them, other transports follow, drawn by the same desperate hope. The Mon Calamari cruiser is taking heavy fire, its organic-looking hull scarred and burning. But its crew keeps fighting with the same stubborn courage that defined their resistance against the Empire for decades. Han grits his teeth and pushes the Falcon even harder. The ship shudders as it enters the crossfire zone, bolts of energy screaming past close enough to feel through the hull. A transport to their left explodes in a ball of flame, its 100 passengers gone in an instant. Another is caught in a tractor beam and dragged inexorably toward a Star Destroyer's hangar, its engines flaring uselessly against the invisible grip. Chewie howls and points at the display. Han sees it. The Chimera is turning its guns toward them, the massive capital ship graceful despite its size. In 5 seconds, they'll be in range of its heavy turbo lasers. In 10, they'll be vapor. The Grand Admiral himself is watching, they can be certain. This is exactly the kind of moment Thrawn lives for. Leia closes her eyes and reaches out with the Force. She's not a Jedi, not trained like Luke. But the power is there, has always been there. She can feel Thrawn on that ship, his cold intellect probing the battle like a surgeon examining a patient. She can feel his anticipation, his certainty of victory. But she can also feel something else, a hesitation. He knows she's on the Falcon. He knows who she is, what she represents. He wants her captured, not killed. A living Princess Leia is a political asset. A dead one is a martyr. That calculation is his weakness. "Now, Han," she says. "Trust me. Don't ask why. Just do it now." Han Solo has been in enough impossible situations to know when to trust his instincts, and right now his instincts are screaming to trust Leia. He throws the Falcon into a spiraling dive, dropping below the firing arc of the Chimera's main batteries. The move is insane by any conventional measure. It puts them directly in the path of a Star Destroyer's engines, close enough to cook in the radiation. But Leia was right. Thrawn hesitates. For just a fraction of a second, the targeting solution wavers as the Grand Admiral recalculates, unwilling to risk destroying the ship carrying the New Republic's most important leader. That hesitation is all they need. The Falcon threads through the exhaust wash of the Star Destroyer, its hull groaning from the thermal stress. Warning lights flash across the cockpit. Chewie roars about heat damage. Lando prays to the spirits of his ancestors. But then they're through. Clear space opens before them, the blockade behind, the stars ahead. Han locks in the coordinates and pulls the hyperdrive lever. For a terrible moment, nothing happens, and Han's heart stops. Then the stars stretch into lines, and Coruscant disappears behind them, shrinking to a point of light and then vanishing entirely. They've escaped, but they've lost everything else. In the silence of hyperspace, Leia finally allows herself to breathe. The senators huddle in the common area, shell-shocked and silent, still processing the fact that their government, their capital, their entire world has been taken from them in a single day. Lando brings out rations that no one touches. A medic tends to the wounded, her hands efficient even as tears streak her face. Han sits in the pilot's seat, staring at the swirling blue of hyperspace. His shoulder throbs where the blaster bolt grazed him, but he barely notices. Chewie rests a paw on his shoulder, a gesture of comfort between old friends who've survived too many impossible situations together. "We'll get it back," Han says quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "We didn't fight this hard, lose this many friends, come this far just to lose now. The Empire doesn't get to win, not while I'm still flying." Leia joins him in the cockpit. Her face is drawn, aged years and hours by the weight of command, by the decisions she's made, and the ones still to come. "Where are we going?" "Mon Cala, the fleet's rallying point. If anything survived, that's where it'll be." The fishheads have been preparing for something like this since before the Battle of Yavin. They know how to hide a fleet. Han pauses. Luke's going to want to know what happened. "Luke." Leia reaches out through the Force, searching for her brother's familiar presence. She finds him, distant but alive, his light a beacon of hope in a galaxy that suddenly feels very dark. He'll know. He probably already does. The Force isn't subtle about things like this. Meanwhile, Grand Admiral Thrawn descends to the surface of Coruscant aboard his personal shuttle. The battle is over in all but name. Scattered pockets of resistance still fight in the lower levels, but the strategic situation is decided. The planet is his. Stormtroopers line the landing platform in perfect formation as he emerges, their armor immaculate despite the battle, their discipline unshaken. Thrawn walks among them in his white uniform, every crease perfect, his red eyes surveying the conquered capital with quiet satisfaction. An Imperial officer approaches and salutes crisply. "Grand Admiral, the Senate building is secured. We've captured 47 senators and over 200 administrative staff. The defense forces have surrendered or been neutralized. The planetary government has collapsed. The planet is ours?" Thrawn nods, his expression unreadable. He expected nothing less, but expectations and results are different things. "Casualties?" Minimal on our side, sir. The New Republic forces were poorly coordinated once their command structure was disrupted. Their fleet performed better than expected, but the outcome was never in doubt. The officer hesitates. The leadership fled before we could encircle them. Organa escaped on the Millennium Falcon. Fled. Thrawn says the word as if tasting it, examining its meaning from every angle. He expected nothing less from Leia Organa. She is pragmatic, willing to sacrifice pride and position for survival. It is what makes her dangerous. A leader who would die for principle can be manipulated into dying. A leader who lives to fight again must be fought again. Have the prisoners treated well, Thrawn orders. No executions, no torture, no public humiliations. They are to be housed in comfortable quarters with access to basic amenities. Medical care for the wounded, regular meals, communication with family members, where security permits. The officer hesitates, clearly surprised. Sir, some of these prisoners were directly involved in the destruction of the Death Star. They have Imperial blood on their hands. Many of our soldiers lost friends, family, comrades. There will be demands for justice. Thrawn turns his red gaze on the officer, and the man takes an involuntary step back. The Grand Admiral's eyes hold no anger, no emotion at all. Just cold calculation that somehow feels more threatening than rage. I did not ask for your opinion on justice, Commander. I gave you an order. The prisoners will be treated according to the conventions of civilized warfare. Their cooperation will be encouraged through respect, not fear. Fear creates resistance. Fear creates martyrs. Fear creates the very rebellion we are trying to end. Respect creates compliance. Comfort creates doubt. When our prisoners see that Imperial rule means order, stability, and decent treatment, some will question whether resistance is worth the cost. Their doubt will spread to others. That is worth more than any amount of torture. Do you understand? Yes, Grand Admiral. The officer salutes and hurries away, clearly relieved to escape Thrawn's presence. Thrawn walks through the streets of Coruscant, escorted by his guards, but seemingly unconcerned with his own safety. He studies everything he sees with the same intensity he brings to art. The architecture tells him about the beings who built it. The public art reveals their values and aspirations. The way the citizens react to the Imperial presence, cowering, glaring, or relieved, tells him about their psychology. Some citizens hide behind shuttered windows, afraid to be seen. Others watch from balconies with barely contained hatred, their fists clenched at their sides. And a few, surprisingly many, look relieved. The New Republic brought freedom, but freedom doesn't fill empty stomachs or stop crime in the lower levels. Freedom doesn't make the trains run on time. For some, the return of Imperial order is a return to normalcy. Thrawn notes all of this. It will inform his governance. The old Imperial palace looms before him, its spires reaching toward the sky like grasping fingers. The New Republic renamed it the Hall of Unity and covered its walls with murals celebrating freedom and democracy. Images of the Rebel Alliance, of heroes standing against tyranny, of the Death Star exploding in righteous fire. Thrawn examines one such mural, depicting the destruction of the second Death Star. His expression remains neutral, analytical. Remove the political artwork, he orders, but preserve it in storage. Do not damage it. Art should not be destroyed, even propaganda, especially propaganda. It tells us what our enemies valued, what they believed was worth celebrating. That knowledge has strategic value. Someday we may need to understand how they thought, and this art will help us. He enters the palace and makes his way to the throne room. The Ye Emperor's throne was removed years ago, replaced by a circular debate chamber where the Senate's executive committee met to make rapid decisions. Thrawn orders the chamber cleared and a simple command chair installed in its place. He does not want a throne. Thrones are symbols of ego, of power wielded for its own sake. He wants efficiency. He wants results. Within hours, the palace is transformed into an imperial command center. Holographic displays show the tactical situation across the planet. Reports flow in from commanders in every district. Resistance cells are forming in the lower levels, as Thrawn knew they would. Scattered New Republic soldiers are regrouping in the industrial districts. A handful of Jedi students, left behind when Luke Skywalker departed for a training mission, are missing and presumed to be organizing the opposition. Thrawn listens to each report and issues precise orders. His voice calm, his decisions swift. The resistance cells are to be monitored, not destroyed. Plant informants where possible. Track their communications. Map their networks. Let them organize. Let them grow confident. Let them believe they are succeeding. When we strike, we will eliminate them all at once. A coordinated attack on a mature network is more devastating than 100 raids on scattered individuals. The soldiers in the industrial districts are to be offered amnesty. Those who surrender within 3 days will be processed, disarmed, and released to return to their families. Those who continue to fight will be contained and captured if possible, killed only if necessary. Dead soldiers become martyrs whose names are chanted at rallies. Living soldiers who surrendered spread doubt among their comrades. Which is more dangerous to resistance? The man who died fighting, or the man who decided fighting wasn't worth dying for? The Jedi present a more complex problem. Thrawn has studied the Force users extensively through art, through history, through captured records. He knows their capabilities and their limitations. He knows that direct confrontation rarely succeeds against a prepared Jedi. They sense danger before it arrives. They can turn an enemy's strength against them. They inspire hope in those around them. Find the Jedi, he orders. Track their movements. Learn their habits. Identify their contacts in the Resistance. But do not engage. When we know exactly where they are and what they plan, when we have eliminated their escape routes and isolated them from support, then and only then will we act. Even then, we will not underestimate them. Across the galaxy, news of Coruscant's fall spreads like wildfire through the HoloNet. The images are devastating. Star destroyers over the capital, stormtroopers marching through the Senate district, the New Republic flag being lowered from government buildings. For billions of beings who lived under Imperial rule and dared to hope it was over, the images are a nightmare come to life. In the Salvarsal, Outer Rim, worlds that chafed under New Republic taxation and regulation suddenly find themselves reconsidering their loyalties. The Empire offers order, stability, predictability. Yes, there's oppression, but at least you know what to expect. The New Republic promised freedom, but freedom came with uncertainty, with chaos, with a constant fear that everything could fall apart at any moment. And now it has. In the core, panic grips the established systems. If Coruscant can fall, nowhere is safe. Wealthy citizens book passage to the Outer Rim or beyond. Military installations go on high alert. Politicians who supported the New Republic quietly reach out to Imperial contacts, hedging their bets. The coalition that held the galaxy together begins to crack. On Mon Cala, the surviving New Republic leadership gathers in the underwater city of Coral Depths. The Mon Calamari chose this location precisely for moments like this. The city is hidden beneath kilometers of ocean. invisible to orbital sensors, accessible only through secret submarine routes. Here, the government in exile begins the painful process of assessing what they've lost and what remains. Leia stands before the assembled leaders in a chamber of living coral that glows with soft bioluminescence. She has not slept in 2 days. She has not eaten in 1. But her voice is steady as she addresses the representatives who hold the fate of the new republic in their hands. "The situation is grave," she says. "I will not pretend otherwise. Coruscant has fallen. Our military suffered catastrophic losses. Many of our senators are prisoners. The Empire controls the core world's hyperspace routes. Our communications are compromised. Our treasury is on a planet we no longer control. But we are not defeated. We are not destroyed. We are the legitimate government of the new republic, duly elected by our member worlds. And we will continue to function from this location until we can liberate our capital." The assembled leaders murmur among themselves. Some look hopeful. Others look skeptical. A few look like they're calculating how quickly they can defect to the winning side. Admiral Akbar rises, his large eyes reflecting the blue glow of the chamber. "Our fleet is scattered," he reports, his gravelly voice carrying the weight of decades of military experience. "We lost 63 capital ships in the defense of Coruscant. Another 41 were captured or disabled. We have perhaps 40% of our pre-battle strength scattered across a dozen rally points. The Empire controls the hyperspace lanes connecting them. Reinforcing our position here, building a force capable of offensive operations, will be extremely difficult." "Then we must be smart," Leia replies. "We cannot win a direct confrontation with Thrawn's fleet. Not yet. We need time to rebuild our forces, rally our allies, and find Thrawn's weakness. He has one. Everyone does. The Emperor's weakness was his arrogance. Vader's was his attachment. Thrawn's weakness is out there, and we will find it." A senator from Corellia stands, his face red with frustration. "This is madness. We should negotiate while we still have something to negotiate with. The Empire has offered terms. I've seen the communication. If we surrender key military assets and recognize Imperial authority over the core worlds, they will allow the Republic to continue governing the Outer Rim. It's not ideal, but it preserves something. It saves lives." Leia's voice is ice. "You would surrender to the same regime that destroyed Alderaan? That enslaved entire species? That ruled through fear and murder for a generation? Do you think Thrawn's offer is genuine? Do you think the Empire will honor any agreement once they've disarmed us?" The senator falters, but doesn't back down. The circumstances are different. Thrawn is not Palpatine. He's governing Coruscant with restraint. Reports indicate the citizens are not being massacred, not being rounded up for slave labor. Food distribution continues. Services remain functional. Perhaps the Empire has changed. Perhaps this version of it is something we can live with. And perhaps that's exactly what Thrawn wants you to believe. Leia steps forward, her presence suddenly filling the room. A velvet glove over an iron fist is still an iron fist. The moment we stop being useful, the moment we stop being compliant, the moment we become inconvenient, the restraint will end. I've seen Imperial mercy, Senator. I stood on the bridge of the Death Star and watched it burn my homeworld to ash. Every man, woman, and child I grew up with, everyone I loved, vaporized in an instant because the Empire decided they were inconvenient. She pauses, letting the silence stretch. There will be no negotiation. There will be no surrender. There will be liberation, or there will be nothing. The chamber falls silent. Leia's words hang in the air, heavy with history and loss and unshakable determination. Finally, Admiral Akbar speaks. Then we must plan, carefully and thoroughly. Thrawn is the most dangerous opponent we have ever faced. More dangerous than Vader, who was powerful but predictable. More dangerous than the Emperor, who was evil but blinded by his own certainty. Thrawn learns, Thrawn adapts. Thrawn studies us even as we study him. Conventional tactics will not defeat him. Leia nods. That's why we're not going to use conventional tactics. She turns to the assembled leaders. I want every intelligence asset we have focused on Coruscant. I want to know Thrawn's routines, his security arrangements, the mood of the populace. I want contacts established with the resistance cells forming in the underlevels. I want supply lines created, weapons smuggled, hope delivered. And I want to know where Luke is. Luke Skywalker is on Ossus, deep in the ancient Jedi libraries, when he feels the disturbance in the Force. He's been here for weeks, studying texts that haven't been read in millennia, trying to reconstruct the knowledge lost when the Empire purged the Jedi. His students work beside him, young beings from across the galaxy who answered his call to rebuild the Order. The disturbance hits him like a physical blow, a wave of fear and pain and death washing across the galaxy. He staggers against a stone pillar, his hand pressed to his temple. The Force itself seems to scream. His students gather around him, concern on their young faces. Master Skywalker, what is it? What's wrong? Something terrible has happened, Luke whispers. Coruscant. I can feel millions of beings in fear. I can feel the dark side spreading like a stain. He closes his eyes and reaches out, trying to sort through the chaos to find the individual lights he cares about most. He finds Leia, distant but alive, her presence a beacon of determination in a sea of chaos. He finds Han beside her, worried but resolute. But Coruscant itself is wrong. The light side of the Force, always strong on that ancient world, is being smothered by a blanket of oppression and fear. Luke opens his eyes. We have to go back. A Twi'lek student, barely 16, shakes her head. Master, we're not ready. We've only been training for a few months. If we face the Empire now, if we face whatever is happening out there, we'll be slaughtered. You're right, Luke admits. You're not ready for open battle. But that's not what I'm asking. I need to go back alone. I need to find out what's happened, help where I can. You need to stay here. Continue your training and wait for my signal. If this is what I think it is, the galaxy is going to need Jedi more than ever. You have to be ready. The students exchange nervous glances. And if that signal never comes, then you scatter, hide, preserve what you've learned, find new students in secret. The Order has survived worse than this. We survived the Purge, the Empire's hunt, decades of darkness. We'll survive this too if we're smart, if we're patient, if we remember that the Force is with us always. He leaves them with a heavy heart, climbing into his X-Wing and punching in coordinates for Mon Cala. As he enters hyperspace, he meditates on what lies ahead. Thrawn. He knows the name, has heard it spoken in fear by rebels who face the Grand Admiral's fleets. A tactical genius who has studied the Jedi extensively, who collects their artifacts and analyzes their methods. A patient predator who never strikes until victory is assured. Luke will not be able to simply walk into the Imperial Palace and challenge Thrawn to combat. This isn't a situation that can be solved with a lightsaber. This will require something more subtle, something the Grand Admiral won't expect from a Jedi. Luke smiles grimly. Good thing I was a smuggler's friend before I was a Jedi. Back on Coruscant, weeks pass under Imperial occupation. Thrawn's governance is nothing like Palpatine's reign of terror. There are no public executions to entertain the masses. No mass arrests in the middle of the night. The ISB doesn't drag families from their homes for insufficient enthusiasm. Instead, there is order. Quiet, efficient, suffocating order. Citizens are allowed to go about their daily lives with minimal interference. Imperial patrols maintain the peace, but don't terrorize. They stop crimes in progress, but don't search homes without cause. Food shipments continue to arrive on schedule. Public services function better than they did under the New Republic, whose bureaucracy was still learning how to govern. The trains, as the old saying goes, run on time. To many, life under Thrawn is not appreciably different from life before. Some even prefer it. The lower levels, always neglected by every government, actually see improvements. Sanitation crews that hadn't visited in years suddenly appear. Street lights are repaired. Crime drops as Imperial patrols push the gangs into hiding. For beings who never cared about politics, who just wanted to live their lives in peace, Thrawn's occupation is almost welcome. This is precisely what Thrawn intends. He understands that lasting conquest is not achieved through force alone. Force creates resistance. Fear creates heroes. Oppression creates the very rebellion it seeks to prevent. True conquest comes through legitimacy. If the citizens of Coruscant come to see Imperial rule as normal, even beneficial, they will not support liberation. They will inform on their neighbors who join the resistance. They will become collaborators, not through coercion, but through comfort. They will choose stability over freedom and call it wisdom. It is the most insidious form of control imaginable. But not everyone is fooled. In the lower levels of Coruscant, where the sunlight never reaches and the Empire's benevolent facade crumbles, resistance cells multiply like organisms in a petri dish. Former New Republic soldiers who escaped the purges. Displaced workers who lost their jobs when the government changed. Idealistic students who remember what they learned about tyranny. Hardened criminals who resent any authority. All of them find common cause against the occupation. Leading them is an unlikely figure. Cor Sella, a young woman who served as a junior aide in the Senate. She escaped capture during the initial invasion by hiding in a garbage compactor for 6 hours, breathing through a tube, trying not to scream as the walls pressed closer. When she emerged, covered in refuse and half-mad with fear, she found a city under occupation and decided to do something about it. Now she coordinates the growing resistance from a hidden bunker deep in the industrial district. The bunker was a maintenance facility once, forgotten by every database, known only to the workers who used it. She's filled it with weapons, supplies, communication equipment, and most importantly, hope. Tonight, she addresses a gathering of cell leaders, their faces illuminated by flickering glow rods that cast dancing shadows on the walls. A dozen beings from a dozen species, united by nothing but their refusal to submit. The Empire thinks they've won, she says, her voice steady despite her youth. They think because the streets are quiet, the people are broken. They're wrong. Every day more join us. Every night we strike. And soon, when our friends return with the fleet, we'll be ready to rise. A grizzled Zabrak mercenary crosses his arms, his horns casting jagged shadows. Pretty words, little girl. But Thrawn isn't stupid. He knows we're here. He probably knows where we are. He's letting us grow because he wants to catch us all at once. Raid a few scattered cells, you get a few scattered rebels. Let them build a network, map it carefully, then crush it in one night. You get everyone. We're walking into a trap. Cor meets his gaze without flinching. Then we make sure the trap catches him instead. We don't play the game he expects. We change the rules. She activates a holographic display showing the Imperial Palace, its defenses outlined in red. Our contact inside reports that Thrawn's security has patterns. He's methodical because he believes in efficiency. The same patrols at the same times, the same routines. That predictability is his weakness. She zooms in on a secondary facility near the palace. If we can get a strike team inside the secondary command center during the shift change window, we can upload a virus to the Imperial network. It won't cripple them permanently. Their technicians are too good for that. But it'll blind them. Sensors, communications, targeting, all of it offline for maybe an hour. That's enough time to evacuate key personnel, reposition our forces, and prepare for the main assault when the fleet arrives. The mercenary snorts. And how do we get a strike team inside the most heavily guarded building on the planet? I've broken into a lot of places, girl. That one's a fortress. Kor smiles. We don't. The Jedi do. She doesn't know it yet, but Luke Skywalker is already on his way. He arrives on Mon Cala after a journey that feels both endless and too short. The underwater city is beautiful in its alien way, all curved coral and bioluminescent light. But Luke barely notices. He finds Leia in the command center, surrounded by holographic displays and harried aides. The reunion is emotional but brief. There's no time for the tears they both want to shed, for the fears they want to voice. Leia summarizes the situation in clipped sentences. The fleet, the politics, the resistance, the impossible task ahead. Luke listens, observes, waits for his moment. When Leia finishes outlining the military situation, he speaks. You're thinking about this as a conventional war. Fleet against fleet, army against army. That's how Thrawn expects us to fight. That's the game he's been preparing for. He's probably already calculated a dozen scenarios for how we might attack and prepared counters for all of them. Han leans forward. Then how do we fight? Luke stands and walks to the holographic display of Coruscant. We fight smart. Small teams, precise strikes, coordinated with the resistance on the ground. We don't try to liberate the planet in one massive battle where Thrawn can use his tactical genius. We destabilize his control piece by piece. We hit targets he can't predict. We make the population believe liberation is possible. And when they believe it, they'll rise. A popular uprising, supported by military force, is unstoppable. Military force trying to create a popular uprising fails every time. Admiral Akbar strokes his chin, his large eyes thoughtful. It's risky. If Thrawn detects our infiltration teams, he'll crush them. And if the uprising fails to materialize, we'll have sacrificed our best operatives for nothing. It won't fail, Luke says quietly. The Force isn't just power. It's connection. I can feel the people of Coruscant across the light years. They haven't forgotten what freedom means. They're afraid. But that fear can become anger, and anger can become action. They just need to be reminded that it's worth fighting for. They need to believe that victory is possible. We give them both. We show them the Empire is vulnerable. We show them we haven't abandoned them. And when the moment is right, we give them the chance to fight alongside us. Leia nods slowly. It could work, but it requires someone on the inside. Someone who can coordinate with the resistance, assess the situation, lead the critical strikes. Someone who can get close to Thrawn's operations. She pauses. Someone Thrawn won't expect. Luke meets her eyes. I'll go. The room falls silent. Han shakes his head, his face tight with concern. Kid, that's suicide. Thrawn knows who you are. He's probably got your face on every scanner on the planet. You're the most wanted man in the Empire. You wouldn't last an hour. Luke smiles, and for a moment, he looks like the farm boy from Tatooine, full of impossible optimism. Thrawn knows who I was. He knows the Jedi who faced Darth Vader on the Death Star, who helped destroy the Empire's greatest weapons. He doesn't know who I've become. I won't be going as Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight. I'll be going as someone else entirely. The disguise takes weeks to perfect. Luke works with New Republic intelligence to create a false identity with the kind of depth that will survive Imperial scrutiny. Cass Oren, a human smuggler from the Outer Rim, wanted in 3 systems for weapons trafficking. Known to be greedy, competent, and completely without principles. The kind of person who would naturally gravitate to Coruscant's underworld during a military occupation. The kind of person Thrawn's security forces would dismiss as irrelevant. Luke alters his appearance with a dedication that borders on obsessive. He grows a beard, rough and unkempt. He changes his hair, letting it grow shaggy and dull. Colored contacts hide his distinctive blue eyes, replacing them with forgettable brown. He practices walking differently, with a smuggler's swagger instead of a Jedi's grace. He practices talking differently, coarse words and crude humor instead of the measured speech of a trained knight. He studies criminals, watches how they move, how they interact, how they think. He learns to suppress his Force presence so thoroughly that even another Jedi might miss it. He learns to be someone else so completely that sometimes he almost forgets who he really is. When he finally infiltrates Coruscant aboard a tramp freighter, he is unrecognizable. The ship is a rust bucket called the Lucky Break. Its captain a Rodian who asks no questions as long as the credits clear. Luke, now Cass, disembarks into the crowded spaceport with the shuffling gait of a man who doesn't want to be noticed. Even Leia, watching the holographic transmission of his arrival from across the galaxy, has trouble seeing her brother in the rough-edged smuggler who merges into the crowd. "Be careful," she whispers to the empty room. He can't hear her, but somehow, through the force that connects them, she knows he understands. Luke, now Cass in his own mind, makes his way through Coruscant's lower levels. The contrast with the surface is stark and deliberate. Up above, Imperial order maintains a facade of normalcy. Clean streets, efficient services, citizens going about their business under the watchful eyes of polite stormtroopers. Down here, poverty, desperation, and defiance mix in equal measure. The underlevels have always been Coruscant's shadow, home to billions who never see natural light, who live in the infrastructure that supports the gleaming towers above. The Empire's reach is weaker here, the patrols less frequent, the surveillance less complete. It's the perfect breeding ground for resistance. Luke navigates the labyrinthine streets, following contacts and coded messages that lead him deeper into the resistance network. A password whispered in a cantina, a symbol chalked on a wall, a specific item purchased from a specific vendor at a specific time. The security measures are elaborate, designed to catch Imperial infiltrators, and Luke follows each one precisely. Finally, he reaches the resistance bunker. The entrance is hidden behind a false wall in an abandoned transit station, the kind of place no one would look twice at. Cor Sella meets him at the entrance, her blaster trained on his chest, her eyes hard with suspicion. "You're the Jedi? You don't look like much." Luke allows himself a small smile, the expression looking strange on Cass Oren's face. That's the idea. He steps into the light, and for just a moment, lets his true self show through. Not his appearance, but his presence. The Force flows around him, through him, connecting him to everything alive. Cor's eyes widen as she senses something she can't name, a presence, a power, a certainty that fills the room like dawn, filling a dark valley. Then it's gone, and he's just a smuggler again. But she knows. She lowers her blaster and steps aside. "Welcome to the Resistance, Master Skywalker. We have a lot of work to do." Over the following weeks, Luke integrates himself into the Resistance network. By day, he's Cass Oren, just another criminal trying to profit from the occupation. By night, he's something else entirely. He trains fighters in combat techniques that even experienced soldiers find surprising. He uses the Force to gather intelligence that would be impossible to obtain otherwise, sensing guard rotations, feeling the truth in prisoners' words, predicting patrol movements. And he begins planning the operation that will crack open Thrawn's defenses. The target is the Imperial Communication Hub, a heavily fortified facility that controls all military transmissions on the planet. If they can take it offline, even briefly, the Imperial forces will lose coordination. More importantly, it will send a message to the people of Coruscant. The Empire is not invincible. The Resistance can strike at the heart of their power. Hope is not foolish. The operation is set for the anniversary of the Emperor's death, a symbolic date that Thrawn has turned into a day of mourning and remembrance for the Empire. The streets will be filled with Imperial parades and ceremonies. Security will be focused outward, watching for demonstrations and protests. It is the perfect moment to strike inward. Luke leads a team of 12 Resistance fighters through the maintenance tunnels beneath the communication hub. They move in silence, their footsteps muffled by the constant hum of machinery that fills the infrastructure levels. He reaches out with the Force, sensing the guards above them, tracking their movements, finding the gaps in their patrols. "Here," he whispers, pointing to a grating in the ceiling. "2 guards. They'll pass in 30 seconds. When they do, we go up. Don't hesitate, don't make a sound. Trust me and trust each other." The fighters ready their weapons. Luke feels their fear, their determination, their trust in him. It's a weight he carries carefully, knowing that their lives depend on his decisions. The guards pass. Luke reaches out with the Force and lifts the grating silently. One by one, the fighters climb through. Luke goes last, pulling the grating back into place behind him. They are inside the hub. The next few minutes are a blur of controlled violence. Luke's lightsaber stays hidden. Igniting it would immediately identify him to any Imperial who sees it. Instead, he relies on the Force to augment his combat skills, moving faster than the guards can track, striking with precision that leaves them unconscious but alive. His fighters follow his lead, using stun weapons whenever possible. They are here to send a message, not to create martyrs. Dead Imperials become propaganda. Unconscious ones become embarrassments. They reach the main control room to find it guarded by a squad of elite stormtroopers, their armor marked with the red shoulder pauldrons of Thrawn's personal forces. These aren't garrison troops. They're the best the Empire has. Luke raises his hand, and the troopers' blasters fly from their grip, clattering against the far wall. The Resistance fighters surge forward, overwhelming the disarmed Imperials before they can raise an alarm. It's over in seconds, brutal and efficient. The technical specialist they brought, a young Celestin who used to work for the New Republic Communications Ministry, immediately begins uploading the virus. Her hands fly across the controls, her large eyes reflecting the streams of data. 30 seconds, she reports. The hub's firewalls are strong, Imperial encryption is the best in the galaxy, but the virus is designed to exploit specific vulnerabilities we identified weeks ago. We should have complete disruption for at least an hour. Maybe more. Should be enough, Cor says. She activates her comlink. "All cells, this is Nexu. The cage is opening. Repeat, the cage is opening. Begin Phase 2. Across Coruscant, resistance cells spring into action. They attack Imperial supply depots, setting fire to fuel reserves. They ambush patrol vehicles with improvised explosives. They broadcast pirated messages on every frequency, declaring that the New Republic has not forgotten its capital, that liberation is coming, that hope is not dead. The sudden, coordinated assault catches the Empire completely off guard. Without centralized communications, local commanders are forced to act independently, often at cross purposes. One district locks down, while another sends reinforcements outward. Units responding to emergencies find their routes blocked by other units responding to different emergencies. The chaos Thrawn feared is suddenly his reality. But Thrawn is not an ordinary commander. He adapts with a speed that borders on precognition. Within minutes of losing communications, he orders his forces to fall back to defensive positions around critical infrastructure. He dispatches courier ships to re-establish contact with orbital forces. He sends runners to key commanders with handwritten orders. And he begins analyzing the pattern of attacks, his brilliant mind searching for the central node, the command structure behind the resistance. The attacks are too coordinated for unconnected cells. There's a leadership, there's a plan, there's a vulnerability, the communication hub. It's the obvious target. Too obvious. Thrawn allows himself a small, cold smile. The Jedi's here. He's been here for weeks, hiding, planning, thinking himself clever. Luke senses the danger moments before it arrives. A cold presence in the Force. Not dark like a Sith, but sharp, calculating, dangerous in a different way. It's the feeling of being studied, analyzed, understood. Thrawn is coming. We need to go, he tells the others. Now. Right now. Don't ask questions. Just move. The fighters don't question him. They've learned to trust his instincts. They evacuate through the same tunnels they used to enter. But Luke knows the Empire will be waiting at the other end. He leads them a different way, through service corridors and forgotten passageways, drawing on memories from his years visiting Coruscant as a hero of the rebellion. They emerge in an abandoned factory district just as the first Imperial transports land at the communication hub. Luke watches from the shadows as stormtroopers pour into the building, too late to catch them. But he sees something else. A single figure standing apart from the soldiers, white uniform gleaming under the artificial lights, red eyes scanning the surroundings with inhuman precision. Thrawn. The Grand Admiral looks directly at the factory where Luke hides. For a moment, their gazes seem to meet across the distance. Luke feels the weight of that regard, the sense of being truly seen by someone who understands exactly what he is. Then Thrawn turns away and boards his transport. He knows Luke escaped. He knows Luke will strike again, and he's already planning his counter. The Resistance celebrates that night. The attack was a success. The Empire's communications were disrupted for almost 2 hours. Dozens of successful operations were carried out across the planet. For the first time since the occupation began, the people of Coruscant have proof that resistance is possible. But Luke does not celebrate. He knows what's coming. Thrawn will not make the same mistake twice. The next operation will be harder, more dangerous, more likely to end in blood. And somewhere out there, the Grand Admiral is setting a trap. While Luke works from within, the New Republic prepares its counterstrike from without. Leia coordinates with allied systems, calling in every favor, every debt, every promise ever made to the rebellion. Ships trickle in from across the galaxy. Volunteers sign up by the thousands. The scattered remnants of the Republic fleet begin to coalesce into a fighting force again. But it's not enough. Not yet. They need more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. They need time that Thrawn isn't giving them. Han Solo takes matters into his own hands. He reaches out to his old contacts in the smuggling world, calling in favors accumulated over decades of barely legal commerce. Ships that can't fight in a battle line can still carry supplies. Pilots who won't risk their lives in combat will risk them for the right price and the right cause. Within weeks, a steady stream of weapons, medical supplies, and reinforcements flows toward the resistance on Coruscant. The smuggler network that once served the Empire now works against it. On one of these runs, Han himself pilots the Falcon through the Imperial blockade. It's insane by any reasonable measure. The blockade has been reinforced since the initial invasion. Thrawn knows supplies are getting through and has tripled the patrol coverage. Han doesn't care about reasonable. He drops out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, running, silent, using the moon of Hesperidium as cover. The Imperial patrols don't expect anyone to approach from that direction because the gravity wells make navigation nearly impossible. Nearly isn't the same as completely. And Han Solo has been doing the impossible his whole life. He threads the Falcon through the gravitational chaos, his hands steady on the controls, his eyes fixed on the sensors. Chewie growls nervous warnings. Lando, manning the guns, prays to every deity he can remember. But Han is in his element. This is what he was born to do. They burst through the interdiction zone and streak toward Coruscant, too fast for the surprised Imperial ships to intercept. Han broadcasts a coded signal, and a landing beacon activates in the lower levels. They're expected. The Falcon touches down in a hidden hangar, and Han is immediately surrounded by resistance fighters. They unload crates of weapons, medical supplies, communication equipment. But Han isn't just here to deliver cargo. "Take me to Luke," he says. "We need to talk." The reunion is brief but warm. Luke looks tired, worn by weeks of guerrilla warfare, by the constant pressure of leadership, by the weight of all the lives depending on his decisions. But his eyes still hold that spark of hope that has always defined him. "You look terrible," Han says with a grin that doesn't quite reach his eyes. "You look old," Luke replies. And for a moment they both laugh. They embrace, brothers in everything but blood. Han brings news from the outside. The fleet is almost ready. Leia's been working miracles, pulling in ships and supplies from everywhere. We've got Mon Calamari cruisers, Salustan bombers, DAC carriers, even a few Imperial defectors who hate Thrawn more than they love the Emperor. We're looking at maybe 3 weeks before we can launch a serious offensive. Luke nods. We'll be ready. The resistance has grown. When you hit them from above, we'll hit them from below. Thrawn won't be able to fight on both fronts. But Luke's confidence is tempered by concern. Thrawn knows something's coming. He's been pulling back non-essential personnel, consolidating his forces, strengthening key positions. He's not preparing to hold the planet. He's preparing for a siege. Han shrugs. Then we give him one. "Whatever it takes, kid. We're getting Coruscant back. Han can only stay a few hours before the risk of detection becomes too great." As the Falcon lifts off for its return journey, Luke watches it disappear into the sky. Soon, he thinks. Soon, this will end, one way or another. The final weeks before the assault are a blur of activity. Luke coordinates with resistance cells across the planet, synchronizing their preparations through a network of coded messages and force-mediated communication. Weapons are distributed. Fighters are trained. Plans are refined. The target list grows. Communication nodes that have been rebuilt since the first attack. Shield generators protecting key facilities, Imperial barracks and weapons depots. Each one is assigned to a specific cell with specific objectives and specific timing. The operation is massive in scope, but precise in execution. Thrawn watches it all unfold with cold fascination. His intelligence network has penetrated several resistance cells. He knows an assault is coming. He even knows approximately when. What he doesn't know is the details, the specific targets, the timing of the individual operations. The Jedi has been careful. He's compartmentalized information, trusting each cell only with what it needs to know. It's exactly what Thrawn would do in his position. The Grand Admiral summons his senior officers to the command center for a final briefing. The holographic display shows Coruscant in perfect detail, every installation marked, every vulnerability identified. Gentlemen, the enemy is about to commit to battle. They believe they have planned a masterpiece of coordinated assault. They believe they will catch us off guard, cripple our systems, and liberate the planet before we can respond. He pauses, letting his officers absorb his words. They are wrong. But we will let them believe they are right. He manipulates the display, highlighting key positions. When the attack begins, they will strike here, here, and here. Shield generators, communication hubs, power distribution centers. They believe that crippling these systems will allow their fleet to break through our defenses. They are correct. These positions are strategically vital. The officers exchange confused glances. Sir, an admiral asks, if we know their targets, shouldn't we reinforce them? No. Thrawn's eyes gleam with cold calculation. We will do the opposite. We will evacuate all non-essential personnel from these positions. We will leave skeleton crews with orders to resist briefly and then surrender. We will let them take their objectives. We will let them believe they are winning. He zooms the display to show the orbital defense platforms hidden behind Coruscant's moons. These platforms were concealed before the invasion. The New Republic never knew about them. 48 ion cannons and turbolaser batteries, fully operational but powered down to avoid detection. When the enemy fleet commits to the assault, when they press forward believing our defenses are crumbling, these platforms will activate and catch them in a devastating crossfire. He shifts the display to show positions beneath the planet's surface. Simultaneously, our reserve forces, hidden in the old military bases beneath the city, will emerge and engage the resistance from behind. The rebels will believe they are attacking a weakened enemy. Instead, they will be surrounded. They will be annihilated. An admiral speaks up, his voice careful. And the Jedi, sir? Thrawn's expression doesn't change. The Jedi is a complication, but a predictable one. He is powerful. He is resourceful. He inspires others, but he is also bound by attachment. He will be where his friends are most in danger. He will try to protect them instead of pursuing tactical advantage. That predictability is his weakness. I will have my best troops waiting at the positions where his allies are most vulnerable. When he comes to save them, and he will come, we will be ready. The day of the assault dawns gray and cold, the artificial weather systems reflecting the mood of the city. Luke meditates in the resistance bunker, centering himself for the battle ahead. He feels the force flowing through him, connecting him to every living thing on the planet. He senses the fear of the civilians waiting for something to happen, the determination of the fighters preparing for what may be their last operation, the cold resolve of the Imperial troops who believe they're about to crush a rebellion. And he senses something else, a wrongness in the pattern, a trap. He knew it was possible. Thrawn is too clever, too thorough to be caught unprepared. But the trap only works if they walk into it blindly. Luke opens his eyes. We have a problem, he tells the resistance leaders gathered around him. Thrawn knows we're coming. not the details, but the general shape of our plan. He's prepared a counter. He describes what he's sensed, the hidden platforms in orbit, the reserve forces beneath the city, the ambush waiting to spring. Kor's face goes pale. Then we've lost. We can't change the plans now. The fleet is already on its way. The cells are in position. If we call it off, if we wait, the Empire will tighten its grip and we'll never have another chance. We can't change the plans. Luke agrees. But we can change how we execute them. He points to the holographic display. Thrawn expects us to hit the primary targets first, the obvious ones, the ones that will let the fleet through. Instead, we hit his reserves. Before they can emerge, before they can trap our forces, we take them out. The Zabrak mercenary leans forward. That's suicide. Those bases are hardened positions, buried under kilometers of rock and duracrete. We don't have the firepower to crack them. We don't need firepower, Luke says. We need precision, and we need someone on the inside. He tells them his plan. It's audacious. It relies on timing, luck, and the hope that Thrawn's own cleverness will be his undoing. The Grand Admiral has concentrated his reserves in a few locations for maximum impact. But concentration is also vulnerability. If Luke can get inside before the trap springs, he can turn Thrawn's weapon against him. The Resistance fighters look at each other. Then Kor speaks for them all. Let's do it. The New Republic fleet drops out of hyperspace at the edge of the Coruscant system. 37 capital ships, hundreds of fighters, the largest force the New Republic has assembled since the Battle of Jakku. Admiral Akbar commands from the bridge of the flagship Home 1, his large eyes scanning the tactical display. Around him, officers relay information in urgent voices. The Imperial fleet is in defensive formation. Star destroyers anchor the line, their massive hulls bristling with weapons. TIE fighters swarm in screening patterns. It is a formidable sight, but not an overwhelming one. The New Republic has faced worse odds and won. Leia stands beside Akbar, her presence a rallying point for the crew. She watches the enemy fleet and thinks of everything that has led to this moment. All the battles, all the losses, all the friends who died believing in this cause. All ships, Akbar commands, begin attack pattern Delta. Target the command ships, draw them out from their defensive positions. He turns to Leia. May the Force be with us. The fleet surges forward. Turbo laser fire lights up the void. The battle for Coruscant has begun. On the surface, Luke leads his team toward the primary hidden base. They move through maintenance tunnels that haven't been used in decades, guided by old schematics and Luke's Force-enhanced senses. Above them, they can hear the muffled thunder of the battle beginning, feel the vibrations of the first orbital strikes. The base entrance is exactly where the schematics said it would be. A massive blast door hidden behind a false wall in an abandoned transit station. Luke places his hand on the cold durasteel and reaches out with the Force. He can feel the troops inside. Hundreds of them, elite soldiers in full combat gear, waiting for the order to emerge and crush the Resistance. They're confident. They believe they're about to achieve total victory. Luke closes his eyes and concentrates. The lock mechanism is electronic, protected by codes he doesn't know. But locks are just machines, and machines respond to the Force if you understand them well enough. Slowly, carefully, he feels for the components. The circuits, the connections, the fail-safes designed to prevent exactly what he's doing. He finds the release and triggers it with a thought. The blast door groans and begins to open, revealing the shocked faces of the soldiers inside. Luke's lightsaber ignites. Green light fills the tunnel, and for the first time in weeks, he is not Cass Oren the smuggler. He is Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight. He is hope made manifest. He leaps into the base, his weapon a blur. Resistance fighters pour in behind him. The battle is intense, but brief. The Imperial troops are elite, but they're caught off guard. Their formation designed for emergence, not defense. Luke moves through them like a force of nature, deflecting blaster bolts, disabling soldiers, clearing a path for his fighters. He doesn't kill unless he has to. Every life matters, even enemy lives. Within minutes, the base is theirs. The hundreds of troops meant to ambush the resistance are neutralized. Luke moves to the communication console and broadcasts on the Imperial frequency. Thrawn, I know you're listening. Your trap has failed. Your reserves are destroyed. Surrender now and spare your soldiers further bloodshed. On the Chimera, Thrawn receives the message. His expression doesn't change, but his officers see something in his eyes they've never seen before. Surprise. Genuine surprise. The Jedi has exceeded his calculations. Impressive, he murmurs. He didn't attack the obvious targets. He attacked me. For a moment, he reconsiders his entire strategy. The hidden orbital platforms are still in position. The fleet engagement is proceeding according to plan. But the ground operation is compromised. The resistance will not be surrounded. Activate the orbital platforms, he orders. We will engage the enemy fleet directly. If we cannot trap them on the ground, we will destroy them in space. Sir, his captain protests. Without our ground reserves, the surface operations will collapse. We'll lose the planet. Thrawn nods. Then the surface will fall. But the fleet is what matters now. An army without a fleet is trapped. A fleet without an army can reconquer worlds at will. Destroy the enemy ships, and we can retake Coruscant at our leisure. Lose our ships, and we lose everything. In orbit, the hidden weapons platforms power up. Leia spots them first, new contacts appearing on the tactical display behind their fleet. Massive energy signatures where there should be nothing but empty space. Admiral, behind us. We're caught in a crossfire. Akbar sees it. His face, normally calm, even in crisis, shows a flash of fear. All ships, evasive action. Redistribute shields. We're caught between two forces. The battle turns desperate. The Republic fleet is caught between the Imperial line ahead and the newly revealed platforms behind. Ships begin to fall, their shields overwhelmed by fire from two directions. The carefully planned assault dissolves into chaos. Leia watches the casualties mount and feels a cold knot forming in her stomach. They're losing. Even with Luke's success on the ground, even with the resistance rising, they're losing. But then, something unexpected happens. A new fleet drops out of hyperspace. Not Imperial, not New Republic. The ships are old, mismatched, civilian vessels pressed into military service. Smuggler ships, pirate vessels, yachts and freighters with weapons bolted to their hulls. At their head is the Millennium Falcon. Han's voice crackles over the comm. Miss us? Lando coordinated it. While the main fleet prepared for battle, Han and his smuggler contacts gathered every armed ship they could find. It's not a professional military force. It's a rabble, a collection of criminals and opportunists and idealists who decided the Empire had to fall. But it doesn't need to be professional. It just needs to hit those platforms. The smuggler fleet swarms the orbital weapons, their small, nimble ships evading the platform's heavy turbo lasers designed to kill capital ships. Han leads the assault personally, the Falcon's guns blazing. Lando mans the quad laser turret, picking off defensive emplacements. Chewie keeps the shields, balanced as fire splashes against them. One platform explodes, then another. The crossfire that was destroying the Republic fleet begins to falter. Akbar seizes the opportunity. All ships concentrate fire on the Imperial line. This is our chance. The tide of battle turns. On the surface, the resistance rises. Cells across the planet attack simultaneously. Imperial forces, already stretched thin without their reserves, cannot respond effectively. The streets that were quiet under occupation erupt into open rebellion. Citizens who never fired a weapon in their lives take up arms. Shopkeepers, teachers, factory workers. The masses that Thrawn thought he had pacified pour into the streets. They don't fight with military precision. They fight with anger. They fight with hope. They fight because freedom is worth dying for. Stormtroopers find themselves facing not just guerrilla fighters, but entire neighborhoods in revolt. Their training prepared them for resistance cells, for surgical operations against identified targets. It did not prepare them for a city rising against them. Luke feels it all through the Force. The pain, the courage, the hope spreading like fire. He reaches out and sends a message to every Force sensitive he can touch, a wordless pulse of encouragement and strength. Now. Rise now. This is the moment we've been waiting for. Thrawn stands on the bridge of the Chimera as his fleet crumbles around him. The tactical display tells a story of disaster. The orbital platforms destroyed. The ground forces overwhelmed. The fleet being pushed back toward the planet's gravity well. For perhaps the first time in his brilliant career, Grand Admiral Thrawn faces defeat. Grand Admiral, his captain reports, the enemy is demanding our surrender. Our forward squadrons are being destroyed. The ground situation is untenable. Thrawn's red eyes survey the chaos. He calculates odds, considers options, searches for some brilliant maneuver that will snatch victory from disaster. There is none. Signal the fleet, he says finally. All ships are to withdraw to the Minos cluster. Break off engagement and jump to hyperspace as soon as possible. Sir, if we retreat now, we lose Coruscant. Everything we fought for. We've already lost Coruscant, Captain. What we must not lose is the fleet. Thrawn's voice is calm, accepting reality without flinching. An enemy who retreats can fight again. An enemy who dies fighting cannot. Our ships can be rebuilt. Our soldiers can be retrained. The cause can continue. But only if we survive today. We will return. This defeat is temporary. His words are calm, but something in his eyes suggests he is already planning, already looking ahead to the next battle, the next campaign, the next chance to prove his genius. Grand Admiral Thrawn is not a man who accepts defeat easily, but he is a man who accepts reality. The Imperial fleet jumps to hyperspace, leaving Coruscant behind. Luke watches the Star Destroyers disappear from the sky. Around him, the Resistance fighters cheer. Strangers embrace in the streets. The tyranny is over. Coruscant is free. But Luke does not celebrate. He knows Thrawn escaped. He knows the war is not truly over. He knows that somewhere in the galaxy, a brilliant tactician is already planning his return. But for now, for this moment, there is victory. The aftermath is chaos, but it is hopeful chaos. Within hours of the Imperial withdrawal, New Republic ships fill Coruscant's orbit. Medical frigates land in the devastated districts, their crews rushing to help the wounded. Supply ships distribute food and water to citizens who went hungry during the final days of the occupation. Leia lands on Coruscant within hours of the Imperial withdrawal. She walks through streets still smoldering from battle, past buildings scarred by blaster fire and collapsed from orbital strikes. She sees the faces of the people she fought for. They are tired, wounded, grieving for friends and family who didn't survive. But they are free. The Senate chamber is damaged, but functional. Debris has been cleared. Emergency lighting illuminates the space where democracy will be rebuilt. Leia stands at the podium and addresses not just the survivors in the room, but the entire galaxy watching through restored HoloNet broadcasts. Today, we reclaimed our capital. But our work is not finished. Grand Admiral Thrawn remains at large with much of his fleet intact. The Empire still controls many systems. The war continues. She pauses, letting her words sink in. Yet we have proven something important today. We have proven that tyranny cannot stand against a people united in freedom. We have proven that the new republic is not just an ideal, not just a dream, but a reality worth fighting and dying for. We have proven that as long as we stand together, no enemy, no matter how brilliant, no matter how powerful, can defeat us. The gathered survivors, senators, and resistance fighters, and ordinary citizens alike, rise in applause. It is not the thunderous ovation of easy triumph. It is the quiet affirmation of those who know what victory cost and understand what maintaining it will require. Luke finds Leia after the speech. They stand together on a balcony overlooking the city. The damage is visible everywhere. Collapsed buildings, burned vehicles, makeshift memorials to the fallen appearing on every corner. But there is also life. People returning to homes they thought they'd lost. Children playing in parks reclaimed from Imperial occupation. The sounds of hammers and tools as rebuilding begins. You should have seen them, Luke says quietly. The people who rose up. They weren't soldiers. Most of them had never held a weapon before. They were just ordinary beings who decided they'd had enough. They decided freedom was worth risking everything for. Leia nods. That's what the Empire never understood. Not Palpatine, not Thrawn. You can conquer territory. You can destroy fleets. You can occupy cities and control resources. But you can't kill an idea. As long as one person believes in freedom, truly believes, the rebellion lives. Han joins them, Chewie at his side. The smuggler looks exhausted, but there's satisfaction in his eyes that goes beyond simple victory. So, what now? Rebuild? Go after Thrawn? Take a vacation? Because I could really use a vacation. Maybe somewhere with beaches and no stormtroopers. Luke smiles. First, we rebuild. We make sure what happened here can never happen again. We strengthen our defenses, our alliances, our institutions. We learn from our mistakes. And then, Han asks, then we go after what's left of the Empire. Thrawn is out there planning his next move. We don't give him time to execute it. We take the fight to him. We don't stop until the galaxy is truly free. And then, Luke says softly, we rest, but not yet. Not until the job is done. The weeks that follow are consumed by reconstruction. The damage to Coruscant is extensive, worse than anyone initially estimated. Entire districts need to be rebuilt from the ground up. Infrastructure that took decades to develop was destroyed in days. The economic cost alone will take a generation to recover from. But the spirit of the people is unbroken. Volunteers pour in from across the galaxy to help rebuild. Engineers from Mon Cala, medical teams from Chandrila, construction crews from Corellia. The galaxy that the new Republic united is now united in return, helping its capital rise from the ashes. Thrawn's occupation, for all its horrors, taught valuable lessons. The new Republic implements sweeping military reforms in the months following liberation. Rapid response forces are established, capable of deploying within hours of a threat emerging. Defense spending increases substantially. Intelligence networks expand. Early warning systems are installed throughout the core. But the most important change is in the hearts of the people themselves. The occupation reminded everyone what freedom costs. It reminded them that liberty is not a gift given once, but a responsibility maintained every day. It reminded them that complacency is the enemy of democracy. The new republic that emerges from the battle is stronger, wiser, and more united than before. Not despite the crisis, but because of it. Months later, Luke returns to Ossus to continue training the next generation of Jedi. His students have grown in his absence, their skills sharpened by months of independent study. They gather around him as he tells the story of Coruscant. Not a story of his own heroics, but a story of ordinary people finding extraordinary courage. The Jedi were guardians of peace, he tells them. That was their purpose for 1,000 generations. But we must also be students of war, not because we seek conflict, but because we must be prepared when conflict finds us. Thrawn taught me that. He studied us for years, learned our weaknesses, and exploited them. We must do the same. We must understand our enemies, not to become like them, but to defeat them when necessary. A young student, a girl from a world Luke has never heard of, raises her hand. Master Skywalker, do you think Thrawn will return? Luke considers the question seriously. The Grand Admiral escaped with much of his fleet intact. He's out there, somewhere in the unknown regions, rebuilding his forces, planning his next move. He's too intelligent, too determined to simply accept defeat. Yes, Luke says finally. He will return. Perhaps not tomorrow. Perhaps not next year. But someday, when he believes he can win, he will try again. And when he does, we'll be ready. Because now we know. We know what he's capable of. We know how he thinks. And we know that no matter how brilliant his plans, the people of this galaxy will never stop fighting for freedom. Far across the galaxy, in the unknown regions, Grand Admiral Thrawn sits in his command chamber aboard the Chimera. The remnants of his fleet undergo repairs at a secret shipyard, hidden in a nebula that shields them from Republic sensors. Officers and soldiers work with quiet determination, rebuilding what was lost. Thrawn studies a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. The new Republic controls the core. The Empire has been pushed to the outer rim and beyond. The strategic situation is worse than it has been since the fall of Palpatine. But Thrawn does not despair. He learns, he adapts, he plans. The Jedi, he muses, manipulating the display to show Luke Skywalker's recorded image. Unpredictable, resourceful, more dangerous than anticipated. He attacked my reserves instead of the obvious targets. He understood my strategy and countered it. He zooms in on Luke's face, studying every detail as if it were a work of art. Which, in a way, it is. And he will be more prepared next time. Thrawn stands and walks to a viewport overlooking the fleet. Damaged ships dock at repair stations, soldiers drill in hangars, engineers work on new weapons. The machinery of war turns, slowly but surely. Begin preparations for the next campaign, he orders. We strike in 2 years. That is how long it will take to rebuild our forces, resupply our bases, and develop new strategies. His flag captain, a loyal officer who has served Thrawn for decades, steps forward. And if the Republic attacks us before then? They won't. Thrawn's voice is certain. They're focused on rebuilding, on healing their wounds. They believe the war is over. By the time they realize it isn't, we will be ready. He turns from the viewport, his red eyes gleaming in the dim light. The Republic has won a battle. They have not won the war, and they will not win it. because I am still here, and I do not forget. I do not forgive, and I do not lose twice to the same enemy. The future remains uncertain. The Empire survives, wounded but not dead. The war continues, even in its quiet phases. Thrawn's fleet grows stronger in the unknown regions, hidden from Republic censors, preparing for a return that seems inevitable to those who understand war. But the new Republic has changed too. It is no longer the naive collection of idealists who thought victory at Endor meant permanent peace. It has learned the hard lessons that only war can teach. It has become stronger, more vigilant, more determined. Admiral Akbar spends his remaining years building the fleet that will defend against the next attack. He trains a generation of officers who understand that peace must be protected, that freedom requires eternal vigilance. When he finally passes, he does so knowing his work will continue. Leia becomes the leader she was always meant to be. Not the princess of a dead world, but the heart of a living democracy. She guides the Republic through crises and challenges, through moments of doubt and periods of hope. She never forgets the day Coruscant fell. She never lets anyone else forget either. But for now, in this moment after victory, Coruscant is free. The new Republic stands. Democracy endures. And the people who fought for their liberty, who risked everything and lost friends and faced impossible odds, can look up at the stars and know that their sacrifices meant something. They can tell their children and their children's children about the day the Empire came back and the galaxy rose to throw it out. In the years that follow, Coruscant becomes something more than just a capital city. It becomes a symbol. The scars of battle are not entirely erased. Some are preserved deliberately, monuments to what was lost and what was saved. The Senate District bears plaques naming the senators who were captured and chose imprisonment over collaboration. The lower levels, where the resistance was born, are transformed into memorials honoring the ordinary citizens who became extraordinary heroes. Coruscant, the young aide who hid in a garbage compactor and emerged to lead a rebellion, becomes a senator herself. She represents not a planet, but an idea. The understanding that leadership can emerge from anywhere. That courage is not the absence of fear, but action despite it. She speaks often about those early days, about the terror and the hope that existed side by side in equal measure. Han Solo continues to fly, though his missions change over time. He becomes an unofficial ambassador to the galaxy's underworld, reaching out to smugglers and pirates and criminals who might otherwise become tools of the Empire. Many join the Republic's cause. Others simply agree to stay out of the way. Han calls it diplomacy. Leia calls it bribery. Both are probably right. The Jedi Academy grows under Luke's guidance. His students multiply, young beings from across the galaxy who feel the call of the Force and choose to answer it. They are not like the Jedi of old, cloistered in temples, removed from the concerns of ordinary life. They are part of the galaxy they protect, connected to it, invested in it. They serve not an abstract ideal, but real people with real struggles. Some become warriors, standing against threats to peace. Others become healers, using the Force to mend what conflict breaks. Still others become teachers, spreading knowledge and wisdom to worlds that have known only darkness. The Force flows through them all, binding them together, making them stronger than anyone could be alone. Thrawn watches all of this from afar. His spies report the changes. His analysts interpret their meaning. He sees the new Republic growing stronger, more united, more prepared. He sees the mistakes of the occupation being corrected, the weaknesses being shored up. And he adapts. Because that is what Thrawn does. He never stops learning. He never stops planning. He never stops believing that order, properly imposed, properly maintained, is better than chaos, no matter how popular that chaos might call itself. The galaxy holds its breath, waiting for the next chapter of this ongoing story. Some believe the Empire is finished, reduced to remnants that will eventually fade away. Others know better. They know that as long as beings like Thrawn exist, as long as the dream of Imperial order survives, the fight will never truly be over. But that is a story for another day. For now, in this moment, there is peace. There is hope. There is freedom, hard-won and fiercely defended, and more precious for having nearly been lost. That is the power of freedom. That is why it cannot be killed by any army, crushed by any empire, or defeated by any tactical genius. Because freedom isn't just an idea. It's a choice. And every day, in every corner of the galaxy, beings make that choice again and again. They choose to stand up. They choose to fight back. They choose to believe that tomorrow can be better than today. And as long as they keep making that choice, the light will never go out. The darkness may gather. The shadows may grow long. Empires may rise and fall. But somewhere, always, there will be those who remember what freedom means and refuse to let it die. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.